for this newscast from Beirut, Lebanon.
It's a huge blow for what remains of the pro-democracy movement here in Hong Kong.
Hello and welcome to WION Live Broadcast from London. I'm Ollie Barrett, and in the next 30 minutes we'll bring you updates on stories developing around the world. First up, the headlines. UK Prime Minister Boris Johnson is attacked in his weekly Prime Minister's question session in the House of Commons by opposition Labour leader Keir Starmer. Keir Starmer accuses Boris Johnson of not acting quickly enough to move on his health secretary after an affair was discovered in the health ministry. Boris Johnson insists a new health secretary was in post rapidly. Russian President Vladimir Putin addresses vaccine skepticism in Russia, saying he's opposed to mandatory vaccination, but that people should listen to the experts. He cites his own example of having no side effects after a Sputnik jab. Germany completes its troop pullout from Afghanistan after nearly 20 years of deployment. 59 German soldiers have been killed since 2001 in the course of their service there. The US House of Representatives passes a bill to remove statues from the Capitol building of those who backed slavery. The bill was also passed last year, but rejected by the Republican-controlled Senate. Tigray forces take full control of regional capital Mekelle in northern Ethiopia. Rebel soldiers say they've sent government troops fleeing their positions. North Korean leader Kim Jongun lambasts top officials, claiming they've put the safety of the country at risk. Is it coming home? England beat Germany for the first time in a knockout game since the 1966 World Cup final. The Three Lions are yet to concede a goal at Euro 2020 and will face Ukraine in the quarter-finals.
The past is ripped up, first by Raheem and then such a nation has thirsted.
And Serena Williams' quest for a record-equalling 24th Grand Slam singles title ends in tears. The seven-time champion's forced to retire hurt during her first round women's singles match at Wimbledon. And we'll start with another story that Boris Johnson has just been questioned about during PMQs in the House of Commons here in London. For years, millions of European Union citizens have lived, worked and studied in the UK freely. But after Brexit, these rights are no longer automatically granted. Today is the deadline for European migrants to apply for the settlement plan introduced by the British government in 2019. But there are concerns that many, including senior citizens and children, may have missed the deadline.
This is Marlies Hazelton, a Dutch national. But for her, Britain has been home for 30 years. But since Britain's divorce from the European Union, she's been worried about her immigration status in the United Kingdom.
I can't even get citizenship, and it feels a bit like an insult, because I'm part and parcel of this country. Really, I'm part of the furniture, and it just I've lost that sense of home. It's concerned about the future when I get older here. I don't know, I just don't feel.
Millions of Europeans have lived, worked and studied freely in the United Kingdom for decades. But since Brexit, those rights are no longer automatically granted. The British government had introduced a settlement plan for the country's European migrant community in 2019. The deadline for the applications is the 30th of June. From July 1st, a European migrant who hasn't applied to the plan will lose his or her legal right to work, renting house, and even access to hospital treatments or welfare benefits. Some may even be subject to deportation. Campaigners are worried that many Europeans may not have applied by the deadline.
As a campaign group, we hear a lot from vulnerable residents that, for example, elderly residents that don't necessarily know that they have to apply because they have been in the UK for such a long time. They think that their status is secure. Or often we hear from parents that think that their status automatically passes on to their children, and that's not the case. You have to make an individual application for each child. So even quite late on in the game, we're hearing from people saying, "Oh, I just heard that I had to apply for my child. Is that correct?" Yes, it is. We're worried about people that lack the digital literacy skills to complete the application online. Also, children in care, for example, the information may not be reaching them.
Britain's government says that some 5.6 million people have applied, a majority from Poland and Romania. While half of them have been granted settled status, some 2 million migrants were told to put in paperwork against once they complete 5 more years of residency in the country.
I really fear, personally, that we are at the eve of a new Windsor scandal, where we will see so many cases of people being left illegal, many people having trouble proving they're legally here. So I'm not a pessimist, but I'm a realist, and I look at figures and I look at things, and I can't be completely positive on this. I just hope maybe there is a change of mind.
17-year-old Polish national and student Kasper Adamus, who said that he lived in the UK for 10 years, said that he did not have any issues applying for settlement.
It was quite easy, didn't take much time, it was very easy for me to operate, and I don't really had an issue with doing it. It was quite easy, so there was no problems.
But for many long-term residents, there is a loss of trust and a fear of losing what they call home.
I still love this country, and it would break my heart if I had to move. But at the same time, I'm not sure if I want to stay.
Bureau Report, WION World is One.
Next to Russia, which is battling a third wave of COVID-19 as Delta variant cases in the country rise. The Health Ministry says there are over 150,000 COVID patients in hospital as we speak. The outbreak has worsened in two of Russia's major cities, the capital Moscow and St. Petersburg. In the last 24 hours, Moscow's reported 124 COVID deaths and St. Petersburg 100. In a bid to control the spread of the virus, the country has ramped up its vaccination drive. It's approved a booster shot for those who've already been vaccinated. People can receive it 6 months after receiving their first vaccine dose. Russia has one of the highest COVID case rates in the world. It was the first country to approve a COVID vaccine, but its vaccination drive has been slow due to vaccine hesitancy and supply shortages.
С учетом неблагоприятной эпидемической ситуации в Российской Федерации будет разрешено проводить вакцинацию после 6 месяцев после перенесенного заболевания и после 6 месяцев после предыдущей вакцинации первичной. После достижения коллективного иммунитета и после стабилизации ситуации вакцинация может проводиться раз в год.
And for more on this story now, WION correspondent in Moscow, Julia Chapman reports.
It was indeed, and it doesn't just have one. There are 4 different Russian-developed vaccines against COVID-19 that have been approved by regulators in Russia. Sputnik V, the first one, is the most widespread. It's the one that most Russians are getting vaccinated with simply because it was the first one and production has been going on for longer. But there is still a lot of uncertainty amongst Russians about these vaccines. There have been very low uptake numbers across the country. Just shy of 12% of the population has been fully vaccinated against COVID-19. Those figures are slightly higher in the big cities like Moscow and St. Petersburg. Here in the capital, the figure is closer to 16%. Nevertheless, there is still a lot of mistrust around the vaccines, and there are few explanations for this. First of all, it was approved very quickly, Sputnik V, and there are some concerns that it wasn't fully studied, although it is now being used so widely around the world that it does look certainly to be safe and effective, and there have been studies into it that seem to confirm that as well.
Sticking with COVID-19 now, but moving to Indonesia, where the coronavirus outbreak continues to make alarming inroads. The country's witnessing record daily caseloads in recent days, and according to the Red Cross, the country is on the edge of a catastrophe. The more infectious Delta variant is fueling the outbreak in Indonesia, choking the healthcare system. Indonesia's reported record daily infections of more than 20,000 in recent days. With the surge in cases, oxygen prices in Indonesia's capital have also doubled, with some suppliers reporting shortages of cylinders to meet the growing needs.
Oxygen cylinders are getting harder to find since the distributor is running out of stock. But oxygen supplies at the moment are still fine. But it's being restricted as demand keeps increasing. I'm afraid if the demand stays high, we'll be running out of oxygen soon.
Hospitals in several designated red zone areas have reported breaching capacity, including the capital city of Jakarta, with its isolation beds almost 93% occupied. Indonesia's health minister is reportedly leading a push for stricter controls to curb the growing spread of the virus. Indonesia is currently banking on a mass immunisation programme to combat the COVID crisis, but so far only 13.3 million of the targeted 181.5 million have received the required 2 doses. North Korean leader Kim Jong-un has replaced several senior officials. According to state media, Kim Jong-un took the decision after a crucial coronavirus incident. Analysts say it's a signal that coronavirus may have breached North Korea's borders. According to the state Korean Central News Agency, Kim Jong-un accused senior officials of neglecting their duties. Kim Jong-un also added that a lack of ability and irresponsibility had hindered the implementation of important tasks. He accused officials of self-protectionism and passiveness. Kim Jong-un also reportedly transferred and appointed members of the Presidium of the Politburo. That's the highest decision-making body of the ruling Workers' Party. Secretaries of the Central Committee and officials of several state agencies were also replaced at the meeting. KCNA says Kim slammed officials and accused them of, quote, creating a great crisis in ensuring the security of the state and safety of the people, and entailed grave consequences. Pyongyang closed its borders in January last year to try and protect itself against the virus that first emerged in neighbouring China. North Korea has not publicly confirmed any cases of the disease. Analysts claim the latest development is a clear indication that there have been infections in the isolated country. North Korea remains under international sanctions for its nuclear weapons and ballistic missiles programs. The country is also facing a worsening food crisis. During a military parade in October, a tearful Kim thanked North Koreans for not having yet had any COVID cases. But analysts have long doubted that assertion. China is all set for a huge celebration as the Communist Party marks 100 years since its foundation. The celebrations will be led by Chinese President Xi Jinping, who will praise the party's past and early days of struggle. President Xi is also likely to talk about China's path from a poverty-hit nation to an economic superpower. Celebrations will be held in Tiananmen Square in Beijing.
China is gearing up for a complete patriotic extravaganza. On July 1, the Chinese Communist Party will celebrate the 100th anniversary of its founding. President Xi Jinping will lead the celebrations, ushering a new era for the Communist Party.
For 100 years, generation after generation of CPC members advanced in waves, spit blood in battles, engaged in hard work, and made selfless sacrifices to achieve national independence, people's liberation, national prosperity, as well as the well-being of the people, composing an epic heroic song of praise.
The Communist Party of China was founded in 1921 and held its first Congress in Shanghai. They were led to power under Mao Zedong in 1949, and since then the Communists have ruled China single-handedly for over 70 years. With China's growing population, the Communist Party's ranks also grew, totaling 95.2 million members in 2021, or 6.7% of the Chinese population.
It's now 12 years since Mao Zedong.
After Mao's death in 1976, Deng Xiaoping came to power. He embraced a market economy and transformed what was a poor country into an economic superpower. In 1989, Jiang Zemin came to power after a military crackdown on pro-democracy protesters at the Tiananmen Square in Beijing. Under Zemin in the 1990s, the Chinese economy saw a four-fold expansion. His role was followed in 2002 by Hu Jintao, who led China for 10 years. Jintao was succeeded by China's current leader, Xi Jinping.
Comrades, a new era needs heroes, and it will certainly produce heroes. The CPC in China must remain the pioneer of the era and the nation's backbone. The team of CPC members must be competent.
The centenary celebrations will highlight China's rise as a global superpower. With slogans and fireworks, Beijing put on a mass performance. Performances at the Bird Nest National Stadium showcased achievements of the Communist Party, including the handover of Hong Kong to Chinese rule. President Xi's campaign to alleviate poverty and China's expanding military power. On Thursday, Xi Jinping will preside over the main ceremony in Tiananmen Square in the center of Beijing. Authorities have closed the square for preparations.
I think we have had fast development in the past 100 years. The country is changing every day. Also, we are taking a development path with Chinese characteristics. Step by step, we are getting to the forefront of the world.
There would be no new China without the Communist Party. The leadership of the party is very important. The party has adopted a lot of policies and strategies that give us a lot of support and help, such as those in science and technology and in education.
President Xi Jinping is expected to emphasize the party's drive for what it calls national rejuvenation, including a campaign to bring Taiwan under China's control. The 100-year celebrations, where Xi Jinping is expected to make a long speech about the party's future, will provide an opportunity to the Chinese president to project himself as a leader that plans to make China the leading global superpower. Bureau Report, WION, World is One.
An intense heat wave has swept across parts of the United States and Canada. The heat wave has sent temperatures soaring, prompting authorities to issue evacuation orders in places. Heat waves have recently scorched the entire Pacific Northwest. Wildfires continue to blaze in North Carolina. Heat waves in the cities of Seattle and Portland have caused power blackouts. People continue to battle with the intense heat, while power companies warn against more power outages. Schools and businesses have been shut in many cities as the mercury hit triple digits in Fahrenheit. Some power cables even melted, causing disruption in streetcar and light rail services in Portland as demands for electricity increased. US President Joe Biden is scheduled to chair a meeting with his officials over wildfires and the heat wave later today. Record-breaking temperatures have killed over 230 people in Canada's British Columbia, it's thought. The province's chief governor, Lisa Lapointe, said the death toll is likely to grow as the heat continues. At least 69 people have died in Canada's Vancouver in recent days, and officials there are warning that the situation could become significantly worse.
We have tried, and our cities, usually those that are accustomed to heat like this, have municipal programs in place to protect people, calling on them to come to cooling centers, ensuring that we're checking up on the people we care about and the people that we know may well be in distress. Obviously, we can always, in hindsight, have planned to do better and do more. In this instance, I think the big lesson coming out of the past number of days is that the climate crisis is not a fiction, it is absolutely real.
And climate change has resulted in record-breaking temperature rises all over the world. Meteorologists say the heat wave in North America at the moment is partly due to climate change, but is also specifically due to a so-called dome of high pressure above the region. Now, on the 1st of July, Diana, Princess of Wales, would have turned 60. Decades after her tragic death in Paris, Princess Diana is still remembered by many for making the monarchy here in the UK more approachable, and for the way in which she touched the lives of those she met and the causes she championed as well, many of which didn't get much attention until she pointed the focus towards them. She altered the way many people viewed the royal family. One family in Bosnia is recalling, as we mark her 60th birthday, their time with the princess on an unexpected trip to minefields in Bosnia.
Diana Frances Spencer needs no introduction, but here's some trivia for you. She was born on 1st of July 1961. This 1st of July would have marked her 60th birthday. Shortly before her accident, Princess Diana had made an unexpected trip to Bosnia, her last overseas tour, to visit those who had sustained injuries from exploding landmines planted during the country's 1992-95 war. Mohammad Sulhankich was one of the residents. He had lost his feet in a landmine accident. The prince's visit coincided with his birthday, and much to his surprise, Diana brought him a cake, a kind gesture that has had a lasting impact on him. To preserve the memory of the kind-hearted princess, Muhammad named his daughter Diana.
She just wanted to help me because I lost both my feet. She decided, and it was done, to send me financial support for prosthesis so that I could raise my children. She understood how difficult our situation was.
Diana, Princess of Wales, is to this day remembered for her charity work and kind demeanour, taking up causes that were often brushed aside, for changing the way in which the royals were perceived, her iconic sartorial choices, and of course, for being a royal rebel. Harry and Prince William will reunite at Kensington Palace to unveil a statue of the princess to pay tribute to their late mother. A statue that was commissioned by the brothers on her 20th death anniversary.
My message to them is to always remember their mother. She was a truly great woman, a kind-hearted woman who was always helping, a woman with a big heart, and they should follow in her footsteps to be like her. And I also wish good health and a long life for them and their families.
Her walk through the minefields is only one of the many ways in which Princess Diana made her mark and helped those who needed it the most. Decades after her sudden death, her legacy lives on. Bureau Report WION, World is One.
And finally, England have stormed into the quarter-finals of Euro 2020 after a historic win